Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Kurt Nolan, Director of Member Relations here at Barnabas Foundation, and joining me today is Nathan Osborn, our Managing Director of Planning here at the Foundation. And today's topics, we're going to talk to you a bit about gifting of real estate and business interests. This is a timely topic, as this week I'm actually down in Orlando, Florida, attending a Christian Business Owners Expo here, and I'm talking to them about different ways to make gifts other than cash, and one of them being interest in business, and in some cases real estate as well. So we're going to touch on that topic here over the course of the next 15 to 20 minutes. Just a couple housekeeping things. If you have a question during today's broadcast, feel free to type it into the Q&A portion of the chat here, and it'll pop up on our screen, and we'll be able to address those questions as we go. And today's session is being recorded. Today is part 3 of a 5-part series that we have. You can find at barnabasfoundation.com/interactive. The last 2 sessions on donor advised funds and on cryptocurrency have been recorded and are available there. And this week's session will be available in the next 48 hours or so. And over the following 2 weeks, we'll be touching on IRA giving and marketable securities giving on November 3rd and 10th. And like I said, the recordings are there. So if anything here in today's broadcast or one of the other topics would be of interest to you, you can find those at, again, barnabasfoundation.com/interactive. And so today, Nathan, we're going to dive right into the subject of real estate and business gifts. These things, while they're similar and they're different, as real estate, obviously, we're dealing with real property and business interests come in all kinds of forms, from partnerships and LLCs to C Corps and S Corps. But in some ways, they have a lot of similarities in terms of why people make these types of gifts and the process by which the gifts happen. So that's why we kind of stick the 2 of them together. So Nathan, we're going to start right off with the first question, about why do donors make a gift of something like real estate or business interest?
Well, Kurt, first of all, it's an honor to be here today with you. And yeah, most people, when they think about giving, the first thought is, giving from their cash flow or their income. But if you have real estate or business interests, these can be really powerful ways to gift instead of cash. Now, and they just allow you to give much more for less than just simply reaching for your checkbook. Now, the reason for this primarily is the tax benefits of giving real estate or a business. So whether it's a business, farmland, commercial real estate, vacation home, rental properties, these usually are generally going to make a better gift than cash if you're a generous donor who's wanting to support a ministry.
Excellent. Well, one of the key considerations that often comes up with many, many gifts that we deal with is the tax benefits. And there's a couple of embedded tax benefits to making a gift like this. Why don't you touch a little bit on that subject?
Yeah. First of all, the donor is going to get an immediate deduction for the fair market value of the gift. So obviously that's very appealing. And again, that's a lot of built-in efficiency and creates a very powerful gift. But if you've got a lot of gain in your business or your real estate interest that you're gifting, you can also eliminate that. So again, another powerful tax efficiency built in. And what that means is you're just going to be able to give more for less because you're eliminating the tax bill and creating a deduction. So it just goes, more is going to go to ministry, bottom line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, very true. Especially for folks that have that kingdom mind and focus as part of their estate plan as well. This is a great way to accelerate some of that giving when the right time comes, and when the moment comes where you're prepared and ready to make a gift of real estate or business interest. This can be a very useful tool to, one, help minimize income taxes, but also, again, offset and wipe out that taxable gain that might be embedded on the real estate, which is a very similar issue that we see with marketable securities as well. One of the biggest reasons why we see people give marketable securities is because of that embedded appreciation or capital gain that is taxable if they were to sell it outright. But there's some other benefits tied to this that are a little different than marketable securities, right? We know we have a tax benefit with marketable securities. It's really cut and dry. If you sell it, you pay the tax. If you gift it, you avoid the tax. But with these types of assets, with real estate or business interests, there's other hidden benefits that kind of come along with making that gift.
That's true. Yeah. And the first thing that, and I've kind of touched on this a little earlier, but it does increase your capacity to give because you're no longer just looking at your cash flow or your income. You're looking at a much bigger area and it creates some more capacity. So if you're generous and you're really wanting to do that, this is a great first step, is to look at real estate, or if you have a business. Now, in the case of a real estate, what we often run into, and I'm going to tell a story later, but what we often run into are people who just really don't want the real estate anymore. They don't need it. But they're generous and they're charitably minded. And so what they can do is they can turn that real estate into a gift. So they can turn something that was kind of causing stress and maybe strain financially or just energy wise, they can turn that into a tremendously powerful gift for the kingdom. And what I love about the business, so there's a couple of really nice benefits for giving, and giving a business. When a lot of the business owners we work with, them and their family have spent their entire life or most of their life building this business. They've put a lot of resources into it, and it's been really satisfying for them. And now they're coming to the end of really what they can do with the business or what they feel like they want to be doing. And for somebody who's spent their entire life and that kind of resource building this business, for them to then be able to realize they can gift part of it and use that to benefit ministries that are close to their heart, we just see a great sense of fulfillment, even more than just being a business owner and being successful there. That it really kind of puts some icing on the cake, if you will, for them to be able to then support ministries that are close to their heart by using their biggest and most treasured asset. So it's just more personal. It's a more personal gift.
It certainly is. And we see that with many of the folks that we've dealt with over the years who have made these types of gifts. Looking solely at the real estate side for just a second, does one have to give an entire interest in the real estate, or can they do something less than the entire thing?
Oh, that's a great question, Kurt. And it is one that we get quite often because people do they look at their real estate, their piece of real estate, and they think, well, I kind of want to keep half of this or 3/4 of it, but it would be really nice if I could just carve out a piece of this and give it and not the whole thing. And so you can absolutely do that. And basically how that works is you would just deed Barnabas that percentage of the interest of the real estate. We just a separate deed is created for just that interest. Now it's got to be the entire portion of that interest. So you can't withhold any rights or any benefits from that area that you're gifting us. But yeah, certainly absolutely something that we can do and that we have done fairly regularly in the past.
And we usually do it as an undivided interest, correct?
That's
so
right.
We
Yeah.
deal with replotting anything when it comes to with vacant real estate or commercial.
Yes, that's true. Yes. And the one thing I want to mention, and this kind of tags on to what you just said, is you really want to engage us early and often in this process, because it really is there's really a lot of steps. There's pitfalls that you can fall into if you're not careful. So I just encourage you, not only if it's just a partial or a full gift of real estate or a business gift, do engage us early and often, because we want to make sure that we are able to shepherd you through the process and just make sure that we hit all the requirements and that you understand what's going on. So,
Oh, great point.
Really, really importantly, is all of this really kind of needs to be done prior to any sale, because we do have a prearranged gift concern or a prearranged sale concern sometimes, where if the owner's been negotiating with other parties or there's agreements going on, we really need to head that off. We really need to be ahead of that because we can't have any prearranged sale. And so again, early and often engage us and we'll walk you through that.
Right. Perfect. And a great point too there at the last one, that the deduction is at risk, quite honestly, if you have something that's too far down the road with a prearrangement. So if you're contemplating or thinking about, even if it's a couple of years from now, start talking to us now so we can begin to talk about just understanding the property or the business interest, understand how it's held, look for any potential encumbrances, liens, other environmental issues on any real estate. And just got a nice long road then to deal with it. Make the gift when it makes sense to make the gift. Just because we're in the process of it doesn't mean the gift has to happen right away. And then be prepared to execute that deed to make the gift. And then we can get into starting to market and sell the property. Something we do on a pretty regular basis. So we've gotten to be quite good at this.
Yeah, it's never too early. Now, the other one more point I want to mention, with the real estate and business, if you're looking for a deduction in a particular year, it's good to engage early and often, right? Because we do find that, we get to December 15th and somebody wants to gift a piece of real estate. And so, the challenge there, obviously, if you're looking for that deduction in that same year, that's difficult. So we do need to just, again, early and often. And if you're even starting to think about this, let's have a conversation.
Right, right. These gifts take time. They do. The due
Yes.
diligence process do take time. There's been on occasion some work that we've done on real estate gifts, especially that lead us to believe that the gift shouldn't be made because there's some
Mhm.
myriad of reasons why. Perhaps it doesn't make sense for either a ministry purpose or for the donor's purpose. But that's why it's important to talk to us and not try to call us there in the last 2 weeks of the year and say, "Hey, I want to do something like this," and it gets to be quite challenging. Quite honestly, we can't guarantee it'll happen
Right,
in just a short amount of time.
right.
Um, so as people think about this, they're contemplating, they've owned this business or they've owned this piece of real estate and it's income producing and the income is important to them.
Yes.
Um, what about a situation like that where perhaps they're, as you touched on a little bit about, carrying on a business or a piece of real estate, a rental property that just becoming laborious, perhaps becoming a strain on them physically. They have income needs. What can we do in that particular example where they can still retain an income interest in the gifted asset?
Well, the donor should consider in that type of a situation a life income gift, such as a charitable gift annuity or a charitable remainder trust. And I'm going to tell a story here because I think it illustrates how powerful this can be for a donor. So we had some donors that were managing rental properties, and they were in their 80s, and they had held these rental properties for quite a long time. So they had some issues here that they needed help with. Number one is they did still need income from the properties. They couldn't just give these properties up even if they really, they needed that income. They were in their 80s, so they were kind of getting to the end of where they were able to really effectively manage rental properties. As you can imagine, and I'm sure some people listening have had rental properties. It can really take a lot of energy. And if you get into your 80s and you're starting to think, hey, do I want to do this the rest of my life? The problem is when you get to that point, or when they got to that point, if they were going to sell these, they would really have that big capital gain embedded. But they also still needed the income too. So they had some problems that they needed solved. Well, perfect solution for them was to gift the property in exchange for a life income gift. What I mean by that is they were able to gift us the property, and we were able to set up an income for them for the rest of their lives. They eliminated the capital gain that I mentioned earlier, so it solved that problem. It solved their income problem, and they were able to get an immediate tax deduction, and they were able to give a very generous gift to ministries that were close to their hearts. So for people who have real estate or a business or something like that, a life income gift can be a really good solution if you want to make the gift, you don't want the gain, and you still need income. We can talk with you. And how this works and kind of what vehicle we use, it's really specific to you and your family and your needs. And so those are the conversations we have with you. But I just, wanted to make you aware, or make our listeners aware that, if this is something that you're looking at or thinking about, it's definitely something we can help you with. And again, early and often. Engage us early and often.
No, that couple, I remember the story of them and seeing them in our office. That was one of the great examples of exactly the issue we see all the time. Long-lived assets, they've enjoyed holding them. Now they're just becoming a burden. They need the income stream, don't want to pay the capital gains on it if they sell the property outright. And by putting them, in that particular case, they use a charitable remainder trust. The trust took in the asset. The trust sold the asset, so now the burden of managing the asset is gone. The trust reinvests those assets to generate the funding necessary to continue the payments to them for their lifetime. And then charity will benefit at the end of their life with the remaining assets in the trust. So it's a wonderful win-win-win-win and all the way around, right? In terms of the donor's benefits from a tax perspective and alleviating the burden, maintaining the income stream. And then we have this real nice deferred gift to charity. And then that particular case, they actually retained a portion interest in their particular property. So they didn't give the whole thing. And they were making some gifts, I think, to some friends and family, and doing some immediate gifting as well. So there was a lot of wonderful benefits in that transaction. It's just one of many, many examples that we've done over the years, whether it be real estate or business interests, of things we can work with. One situation that it's not quite something you and I talked about briefly before this, but something that we've seen happen too is occasionally you might have an asset that you still think has tremendous income producing potential, whether it be a business or real estate property. And you just don't want to have it in a taxable situation anymore. You like to hold it for charitable causes. Well, that's potentially something we can work with you on as well, where we may take in a gift and agree to hold that gift for a period of time, collecting the income off of it, using that to fund your donor advised fund and making those charitable gifts out to ministry. Great way to get an amazing tax deduction. And so we can work through all the little nuances of what that means in terms of shifting that income away from you and into your taxable or your charitable side of things, and saving a lot on that income tax bill that you might have on an annual basis. So there's a bit of a process when it comes to making these types of gifts. We touched on this a little bit. This is not something you want to try to do in the last week or two of the year. So Nathan, just kind of share what the process looks like. And again, the process between real estate gifts and business interest gifts are fairly similar. In this particular case, we're using primarily a real estate example.
Yeah, so if you look at our process for a real estate gift, Kurt, I put a little graph up on the screen so we can follow along. But basically, we have some preliminary discussions and just try to determine whether this is the right thing for you and your family, and if the gift is going to really work. But then once we kind of get through those discussions, what we do is we have you fill out. Now, we used to call this our real estate gift application. We do have a new name for it. It's a real estate information form. And so what we do is you complete that and submit that to Barnabas. We have a team here that reviews the application, a lot of the details surrounding the gift. We look at many different things. And then once we approve acceptance, then the donor then provides a deed to transfer the property to Barnabas Foundation. So once we own that, we're able to liquidate it, and then the funds are used for the donor's favorite ministry. So that's the process. It's just filling the form out, getting that back to us, and then we're able to walk you to the finish line on that.
And likewise with the business gifts, we have an informational sheet that needs to be filled out so we understand what the business interest is, how it's held, and so on and so forth. And rather than a deed, we'd have some sort of business transfer agreement, some sort of process or documentation that would transfer the interest over to Barnabas Foundation. So very similar process in both cases, but something that does take time. I think the due diligence part of this is what does take time, especially on the real estate. It's really important from the real estate side for us to understand the history of the property. How has it been used? Are there any potential environmental concerns related to the property because of petroleum tanks that might have been held, in a case of a industrial building or something like that. And those things don't necessarily negate the gift. We do have the ability to accept even environmentally difficult properties as part of a gift. We have a way to isolate them inside the foundation through one of our supporting orgs. So even if you have something that might be have a little bit of hair on it, give us a call and talk to us, because we can talk you through the process and see if it still makes sense to make the gift, especially if it's a marketable piece of property.
Yeah, the earlier we know about all these things, the better. And yeah, like you said, Kurt, we're able to take care of those, but we just need to know about it and and then once we make our decision, we can move forward then.
Sure, absolutely. One key consideration, of course, is the tax deduction. Now, this is a little different than just writing a check or making a security gift. It's a bit more involved, and the IRS does have some unique requirements that it comes to these types of gifts to justify and substantiate your deduction on your tax return. So just talk a little bit about what that appraisal process looks like.
Yeah, so the appraisal does need to be done, and it needs to be correct for you to get your tax deduction. And so basically this, we call this a qualified appraisal. Any gift over $5,000 requires this. It must be carried out, done by a professional appraiser who's qualified. There's some definition of that. And so, there's several requirements that need to be on this document that the IRS lays out. So it must include a description of the property. It must include the condition of the property. The date's important. This appraisal cannot be done more than 60 days prior to when the gift is made. So there's a 60-day window there that you've got to think about. It's got to be done before the return is filed that's claiming the deduction. So you can't, file your tax return and then come back and get an appraisal done after the fact. So timing is sensitive. And again, if these details seem like, oh no, there's a lot going on here, these are things we can help you work through. So just, there's a lot of information, there's detail here. We're experts on it though. So, if you're thinking about this, don't let any of these terms or words we're using here, make you think that's not a good idea. We'll help you with this, but we just like you to be aware. The appraisal also must include the fair market value. That's probably a given, but we just want to be clear about that. Another thing too that not everybody thinks about is if there's any restrictions on the use of the property, or if you're, planning on, directing the property specifically in the gifting process, or if you're conferring a benefit on to somebody through the process, that all would need to be noted on the appraisal too. It's generally not a good idea to have those conditions on a property if you're thinking about donating it. And it's also, if you've got a real estate that's got debt on it or a lien on it, a mortgage due, that's generally not something that's desirable either in a gift. But again, we'll talk you through that process and make sure that we cover all the bases if this is something you're considering doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that debt on property becomes an issue in terms of how it's treated from an income tax perspective.
Yes.
And so while it doesn't necessarily completely negate the purpose of a gift or make it impossible, it does make it a bit more challenging.
Yeah, there's some efficiency leak there if we get that.
Right.
So,
absolutely. So just a reminder, if you have any questions, feel free to type them into the Q&A portion. One question that came up yesterday as I was talking to a business owner himself, he's an S Corp. And S Corps are a little sticky when it comes to making a gift, but they can be done. And we have a trust set up in South Dakota to make it happen. But what's the unique issue with S Corp gifts that kind of make them a bit different than, say, a traditional LLC or C Corp gifts?
Yeah, S Corp gifts can be tricky. One of the issues that comes to mind is, the fact that we have to pay unrelated business income tax on that. When we do that, they're not marketable like a publicly traded stock. Sometimes the appraisals can be tricky and they can be expensive as well to do on a S Corp stock. So there are some details with a business gift that is an S Corp that really there's some really in-depth analysis that needs to be done. So myself and Jim Bakke, our executive director, recently worked on a case where, we did the analysis, and it just comes down to whether it makes sense to you for you to actually donate the S Corp stock to us, or, whether you just sell that and donate the cash. You really have to run those numbers to just see if it makes sense in your specific situation. So,
yeah. But that's, one of the things that we help people do. And so one of the things that we try to do at Barnabas Foundation is help you unlock the value for your charitable and kingdom causes. And we try to make the process easy. And so while at times gifting a real estate or gifting of a business interest can sound intimidating, and there's a lot of work that goes into it, from the application and due diligence to the appraisals and so forth, our team really makes it easy for you. We handhold the whole entire process, make sure that you're doing everything right, make sure the right forms are signed, the appraisals done by a qualified appraiser. So the last thing we would ever want to see happen is you get audited as an individual taxpayer and then see the deduction not stand up. And over the years, we've had, plenty of situations where some of a donor that we've worked with has made a gift, and a few years later, the IRS is reviewing their return and they ask us for information. And so far to date, I'm pretty confident. I think we've helped them all substantiate all their deductions. And so, that's why we spend so much time doing this right, and don't try to circumvent the system in any way, and make sure we do it in a manner in which that at the end of the day, if the IRS ever took a look at it, it would stand up completely. And our track record has shown that.
Nathan, that's really important. That's really important to us as a foundation, and our team of planners and everybody who works here, is that we don't skirt the line on that. We really do make sure it's done correctly. So if it's reviewed, then we don't have any issues.
Absolutely. So as you watch today's broadcast, if you're thinking about, I've got this item, I've got this real estate property, I've got this interest in a farm, or the vacation home, the condo in some far-flung place, or whatever it might be, from a business interest or a real estate holding, and you're just thinking, maybe I should talk to somebody about this just so I understand a little bit more. Give us a call. You can reach us at 888-448-3040. Our team is always available and ready to help you out. If you're watching this and you were invited by one of our representatives from our member organization, feel free to reach out to them too. They've got a direct connection to us as well, and so they can get us all connected into a conversation so that we can talk to you about your unique circumstance. And each one of the gifts that we process in this regard are unique. They're unique to themselves, and they're always fun. Whether it be almond orchards, to industrial buildings, to vacation homes, to duplexes, to a gold mine. We've we've had all kinds of things come through the door, and we'd be happy to assist you with that as well. Today's broadcast, as I mentioned, was recorded. It'll be up on our website here in about 48 hours. So if anything you heard today was of interest to perhaps a member of your family or a friend that you want to share, you'll be able to share that link. You can find that again at barnabasfoundation.com/interactive. And again, just a reminder, next week on November 3rd, next week, Wednesday, I'll be talking about IRA giving with another one of our planners. And then the week after, on November 10th, we'll be finishing out this 5-part series on marketable securities and why they make sense to make a gift of. So, Nathan, thank you for joining us today. Appreciate you spending a little time with us and the audience today. And we look forward to seeing you on a future, see all of you at a future broadcast and in person sometime soon. Until then, blessings on your day. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.